got two presenters today going to give us some KM lessons learned. We're going to hear first from Dr. Chip Valutis, and then we're going to hear from Mr. Leeb as well. So I'm going to start by introducing Dr. Valutis, and then we're going to save questions for the end. We may not have time, so feel free to come up and speak with the presenters directly afterwards if you have questions. So it's my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Chip Valutis, a psychologist, author, and expert in organizational growth. Has over 30 years of experience helping leaders and organizations unlock their full potential. He has worked with Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurial ventures, and family-owned businesses. His work blends the science of psychology with the art of useful application, delivering strategies that are grounded in academia, yet full of creative and practical ideas. Chip's also the author of Talent-Driven Growth, a best-selling book that integrates his decades of insight into a blueprint for scalable organizational success, harnessing the power of their people. Is it here?
Yeah,
the book's here. The book's here.
Yeah, it is here.
It's across the hall.
It arrived.
Yep, there we go. In today's session, Chip will share a recent case where he blended organizational development with AI technology. His fresh perspective and actionable strategies should help us all when we return home to tackle the complexities of modern organizational systems. So again, we're going to hear from Dr. Valutis first, and then we're going to hear from Scott Leeb in the next 20 minutes. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Appreciate the nice introduction. We do have two 20-minute talks. It's us and happy hours, so we have to be disciplined, I'm sure, before you get there. But before I get into my talk, I want to just address the elephant in the room, because I've been feeling it all day. Who in the world let us shrink into a KM conference? That's what I want to know. And it's funny, when I got invited to participate and share some of the cool things we did in a recent case study, I had the exact same thing. I'm like, what's a psychologist going to do with CTOs, CIOs, AI people, KM people? And I started to look at the conference and kind of pay attention to, what do you guys do here? Who are you and what do you talk about? And it's funny, a light bulb literally went off as I started to understand it. And not only do I think I can stay and not get kicked out, I think I'm 30 years late. And I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story about how I should have been here 30 years ago. So I am an organizational psychologist. I work with businesses. I have my own practice, and we concentrate on growth, right? Growing business. And about 30 years ago, early 90s, I'm with a firm out of St. Louis. I wasn't on my own yet, and we were working with Electric Boat. It's a division of General Dynamics. They make really, really cool submarines that go up and down the river. And we were doing a larger, more my backyard, kind of change management, getting labor and management to talk together, work together, figure out how they build these subs and get where they need to be. But in the early 90s, if you recall, it's the end of the Cold War, right? All that period, we started to wrap up that Cold War, and the Department of Defense, the government, started looking at all the money that they were spending on defense and having to start make some difficult decisions. Well, Electric Boat, being obviously a huge supplier to the Department of Defense, the government canceled overnight an order of 24 Seawolf class submarines. Now, I don't know how much a Seawolf submarine costs, but I assume it's a lot of money. And they may have, I can't remember, it's a long time ago, they may have actually canceled the entire Seawolf program. So, but anyway, I'm not out there for that, right? I'm out there to talk to the labor leaders and the management leaders and get them playing nice. But I'm a contract worker, parking in the employee parking lot, walking into campus. And I was just eavesdropping, which shrinks do a lot of eavesdropping, right? We like to listen and watch. And these people in front of me, I heard the one person say, what in the world are they thinking? They're letting 20,000 years of experience walk out the door. How in the world do they think we're going to replace that? How in the world do they think we can do the work? And honestly, what caught me wasn't so much that they were letting people go, laying off and having an early retirement. That's kind of normal. What caught me was the number, 20,000 years of experience. And later, looking it up, they did in fact lay off 1,000 people. You've got average, just easy shrink math, average tenure of 20 years, because they had a lot of early retirement. 1,000 people, 20 years, that's 20,000 years of experience walking out the door. And it didn't dawn on me, it's weird. I haven't thought of this Electric Boat client or this story for a lot of times, but when I was reading your brochures and looking at this and thinking of coming here, I thought that's exactly why I'm here. right? The issue of extracting institutional knowledge has always been around. It's always been a huge challenge. But today, with the technology advancements we have, with the tools like AI and all the kinds of stuff that you guys are experts in, not me, it is amazing what we can do. So I'm going to bring a much more near-term case study. We've been working with a client using an AI platform that are actually here as well as SugarWork. They're in the room and they're in the booth in the exhibition hall, but kind of a tool that we selected independently to use and talk to you a little bit about how that worked. So hopefully you'll get some takeaways. Real quick, even though that was a very nice introduction, a little bit about me. I'm a psychologist, formerly trained in counseling psychologist, which normally we work with everyday neurotics like you and I and kind of help people grow in their lives and their well-being. I early on switched over to work with organizations, and the way I look at it, I help companies grow as opposed to helping people grow, but in the process I can also help people grow. And I've been doing that a long time, so my whole angle and kind of with the book is talent-driven growth. How do we grow your business utilizing the talent in the room, finding the right people for the right jobs, all the stuff you guys have heard before, and kind of get it moving the organization where we want it to go. So I've been doing a lot of that for years. I've always loved tech. I stood in line for the first iPhone. I stood in line for the first iPad. I mean, I'm an early adapter. Very new to your world, very new to AI, very new to knowledge management, but really starting to appreciate through this particular intervention how important that can be in my kind of work, in my world, and looking forward to using more of it. So the case I prepared for today, I'm going to walk through it in a fairly consistent manner. So where were we? What was the context of what was going on? What did we do? How did it work? What did we learn? Which the learning part hopefully will benefit you guys as well. How to sell it, right? I'm sensitive to most of you have to go back to all the cool things you're learning this week and say, hey, can you put me in the 2025 budget? I got some cool things I want to do. So how might you sell this to others? And there's just a couple of take-home tips as well to hopefully benefit. So that's the rough outline. Get through it in 20 minutes and see what we can learn. So overview of the case. And again, keep in mind, before this particular knowledge management platform, AI platform was introduced, I'd been working with this client for about 1.5 years. Medium-sized, publicly traded medical device company. So they've got a facility in Alabama, a facility in Texas, a facility in Florida. They build really cool machines that actually hold and handle your blood during open heart surgeries. And they also build all these little millions of these little widgets that cost less than 10 cents, but can kill you if there's quality issues or other problems. So pretty interesting business. Long-standing success. All of us wish we would have bought stock in this particular company 20 years ago. They've done exceptionally well. Like every one of us, they hit that little thing called the pandemic and COVID, and immediately their world changed. Not in a horrible way. They were still busy. They still did a lot. But all the dynamics changed. And as we rounded out of COVID, the CEOs started recognizing all those years of aggressive growth, profitable growth, we've actually become a little bit tired. We've outgrown a lot of our people, a lot of our processes, and a lot of our practices. So my charge, organizational psychologist, was to come in and start making those talent-related changes, some structural changes, and try to get them realigned, some big changes to jumpstart that growth. But the CEO, which he'll be speaking in a couple days here, very, very wise man, he's like, I don't want to lose the decades of insight, experience, and perspective. I'm all for getting us back on track. But you got to think about it. They had a lot of 15, 20, 25, 30-plus year people working there. A lot of intellectual property walking around. And he was very cognizant of the need to do that, more so than me. So the way we framed our challenge is we've got to find that balance between retaining that wisdom, but still creating the velocity, the aggressiveness of the growth and the change that he's interested in. So I'll be honest, I didn't have that tool in my toolbox. I didn't. I don't know how to balance that. I'm very used to laying people off. I'm very used to firing people, demoting people, promoting people, all those kinds of things. But to find that balance, I wasn't as sure. Fortunately, he knew of a group, recent startup, I think 22, 21, of AI-powered platform that did exactly that. The company's name's SugarWork. They're at booth 101. You could talk to them, but we brought them in to partner with us on how are we going to extract that knowledge before and during our change and still get the momentum we want. So that's what we did. So in a nutshell, again, they can talk about their platform better than I can, but it's really cool. I learned a lot. So basically, they go find the experts, the knowledge that we want to capture, and we create some learners to go and pull that knowledge out. They have really cool templates that you can customize for interviewing people and pulling that information out. And then all those conversations are recorded, and AI uses all that, transcribes it, does whatever it is AI does behind making the sausage, and then you've got this knowledge base, this searchable conversational knowledge base that then becomes our reference going forward. So high level, again, they're there, you can talk to them. I don't want to try to explain what they do, but that's what we used. So now that I've got that tool in my pocket, I could say, okay, let's get this thing started. Let's make some music. So the way we deployed the SugarWork platform, basically, and this is going to be one of the lessons learned, first thing we did was really kind of define what are our outcomes and what are our target audience. And our primary audience was the highly tenured people, the 25, 30 plus year old people that have been doing it successfully forever. We wanted to get some of that knowledge out of them. That was first. Second was the artists, right? The craftspeople, the guy that could stand next to the molding machine and by listening to it know what cavity's stuck. And you're like, how do you do that, right? But they just know it. And we wanted to try to pull some of that data out. And the third, like I said, we've already been making changes. We were promoting people, we had stretch assignments, we had people that were way over the tips of their skis because we didn't have a chance to give them the orientation, give them the training, give them the knowledge to do their job. But we threw them in anyway because we needed to deploy them. So we wanted to give them something that could work. So that was our frame of reference. That's what we were going for. Once we knew those populations, then we went and we found who is our experts, whose brain do we want to pick, and then who are going to be our learners, who might have a vested interest in trying to pull that knowledge out. We selected them, then we put them on the platform, right? It's pretty intuitive, but gave them a little bit of training, put them on the SugarWork platform, showed them what they're doing, how they're doing it. We worked on those templates I talked about. For me, that was huge. I'm not a big believer that people generally are good interviewers. We're kind of lazy interviewers. And so having these templates to guide the people and pull the right information out to me was a real game changer. So we gave them those, we worked on those, and then we launched them. We said, go mine the gold, get out there, go figure this stuff out. And we played the role of kind of governance, oversight, support, just as they went through all that data collection. And we were off and running. And there's some rough starts. I'm going to mention them in my lessons learned, some things to hopefully not stub your toe the way I stubbed my toe. But honestly, we had some pretty impressive accomplishments. I think first and foremost, at kind of a higher level, that optimal balance we were trying to achieve, I think we did. Our growth strategy, the velocity we were after, some of the major changes we were doing, we were still able to execute as planned, but we really managed to avoid losing a lot of that knowledge, that experience, and that perspective. So that was mission number one, and we gave ourselves good grades for that. Second one was harder, but equally beneficial. We did get those mad scientists, we get those artists, we got those craftspeople to share some of that secret sauce, right? Grandma's spaghetti sauce, like how does she get that extra taste? And they were willing to share some of that. We were able to document some of that and move it from them into the public domain so it could start to be used and built. That went really well as well. What I didn't expect, one of the achievements, was as these interviews were taking place and we got to look behind the curtain, we started realizing how many broken processes, broken system, workarounds, inefficient or inadequate infrastructure that was in the business, which fit the early story, right? We knew we outgrew ourselves. But these experts actually were talking all these stories about how they know how to work around this problem and avoid that person and do this over here. And as that's coming out and we're looking at the data, we're like, what the heck? We got to fix these things, right? We're wasting some of our experts who are filling performance gaps or inefficiencies when they could be doing a lot cooler things. So that was fun. That created a lot more projects for us to work on. And then on more of the emotional side, the engagement and ownership that came out of the learners as they got into this was so fun to see. They were having a blast. They were picking the brain, they were learning, and they were helping, and that was fun to see. And then the experts themselves started to feel a higher degree of appreciation. They felt some respect. You care about what I do. You want to know about what I want to do. You want to know how I do that. Nobody's talked to me for 15 years, and now you're coming to learn. And that was a pretty cool example as well. So, and then the last benefit, which we didn't realize was going to be as important as it was, is we did pull this knowledge out. We did save this extensive knowledge before it left the business. Now, I didn't know this, the CEO knew this, but there had been acquisition talk during my project. And lo and behold, shortly after we wrapped up with the SugarWork project, the company was bought. And like many acquiring companies do, they threw out the CTO, they threw out the CFO, they threw out a bunch of really key people, the leader of this factory, this general manager. All that knowledge would have been gone. We did not see that coming. That was flashback to Electric Boat, right? These are out of the building. So that was a really, really cool benefit we got out of that as well. So it was a success by all means. What did we learn? And this is more, again, on the people and the psychology side, my side of the aisle. I'd never heard the term knowledge hoarder before. I should have, but they're real. I mean, it is real. And I learned, I should have thought of this, right? We're in the age of information, right? Knowledge is power. Knowledge is our currency today. And I'm going to walk up to you and say, tell me everything you know. Basically, translate that to give me your power, right? Give me what makes you unique. And I didn't appreciate that, and that, it's real. It's out there. It needs to be managed. It can be managed, but that was very real. On the artist side, very similar, right? These are Picassos. These are Michelangelos. These are people, they're gifted at what they do and how they do it. And it's the same kind of thing. You want me to tell you how I do what I do, and then you don't need me anymore. I'm obsolete. I'm not special anymore. If you can make the same lasagna my grandma can make, right? Now, I don't need grandma anymore. Chip can make it. So we had to do a lot of empathy there. The other barrier we ran into, which again, I didn't anticipate any of this stuff, shame on me. I remember one person in Alabama was like so offended. You think you can interview me for 4 hours and know everything that I know after doing this for 30 years? And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, it's like, no, we're not saying that, right? This is the tip of the iceberg. We just want some high-level stuff, some top of the waves to begin dialing into that and seeing what we can do to add that to prosperity. So that was huge. We changed the language. The language is important. A lot of these themes on the first learning was, you're making me obsolete. You're making me a lame duck. You're taking away my value. And we switched the language to, no, we're creating your legacy. We're ensuring you stand the test of time. That when you walk out of this building because you retire, we don't forget about you in 3 weeks. We're building legacies. And that went really far. And then the last lesson learned I'll share is just the need for ownership. Any of you ever have your dad walk up to you on a Saturday morning and say, like he said to me, hey, Chip, do you want to mow the lawn? Well, my dad was a shrink, I'm a shrink. It made an interesting combination. And I would say, oh, no, thank you, Dad, but I really appreciate your asking. I found out real quick it wasn't a question, right? It was a statement. So even when my friend David, the CEO, came and said, hey, would you guys like to participate in this SugarWork project? It's kind of like, hey, would you guys like to mow the lawn? He wasn't really asking. So I think initially we got some compliance, but we didn't have a lot of ownership. And when we embraced the compliance, we acknowledged the resistance, we built the understanding. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Why are we doing it? Then we got ownership. Then we got, this is cool, I want to help. And they went above and beyond. If we would have plowed through that noise, if we would have just ignored it, I don't think we would have had nearly the success that we had. So making sure you've got that ownership and not compliance would be the last big lesson learned. I would lead with you guys. And it made a big difference. So that's what we accomplished. That's what we learned. Selling it. I'm not a great salesman, but I've given this a lot of thought. This to me is not your classic, here's how much it costs, here's how long the ROI is, here's our 3 benefit statements that we bullet out some deck that we present. I think you got to look at this differently. And what I got three different things that most of us pay for or should pay for, and how we make that happen. But fire insurance is one. If you own a home, you have fire insurance. Do we expect to get any benefit out of that? Absolutely not, right? I hope I don't benefit from it. That means my house burned down. It's a defensive play. I have it because I have to have it in case something horribly goes wrong, like being acquired by a company that gets rid of a lot of your people. Gym membership's a little bit different, right? Gym membership can be an offensive play or a defensive play. I pay my membership. Offensively, if I go use it, I can lose some weight, I can feel better, I can sleep better, I can look better. There's a lot of cool things I can get out of that membership. Defensively, I can prevent my high blood pressure, I won't die of a heart attack, I can take care of things that way as well. So that particular tool, again, if utilized, I've got offense and defense. AI subscription, I signed up, right? I'm an early adapter. I'll sign up for ChatGPT 4 and I just start to putz around. But what do I learn? The more I use it, the more I learn. The more I learn, the better I am at using it. I first would use it like Google. Where should I eat dinner in Washington, D.C., right? Real good challenge for ChatGPT. And then the more I use it, the better I get at it, the more benefit I get from it. And before I know it, I can't live without this. This has nothing to do with my budget. I can't live without this. So for me, the SugarWork platform, my experience in doing this accomplishes all three of those. It gives me the data I need in case of the catastrophe. It allows me offensively to gain, defensively to build the knowledge base in case, and the more I use it, the more I know. One of my last meetings with these guys, they're still showing me the information you can get out of that platform. I'm like, holy crap, I didn't know it could do that too. Like, I'm still learning as the project's wrapping up. So it's again, you guys know so much more about this than I do. But it's almost like, how can you not buy some of this stuff? How can you not buy into this with that? So those would be a little bit of encouragement on what I do if I had to stand in front of my boss and say, hey, I need X amount of dollars to go make something happen. I'd mix it up a little bit. This is not a traditional ROI play, in my opinion. So my last three tips. Oops, 4, I can't count. Clarify your goals and objectives in advance. Thank goodness we did this. This is not a shotgun approach where you just fire and you go really, really wide but don't have a big of impact. I think it get real messy real quick. This to me is a rifle approach. What do I want to do? Narrow that in. Identify my deliverables, identify my audience, and start there. It's just too big and hairy to just jump in and hope you figure it out. It will not, my limited experience, it will not work. Get that rifle approach. Second one is help people even understand AI or large language models or any of this. You guys live with this every day. Us normal people, no offense, we don't live with this every day. So we don't really have the understanding, and particularly with our experts and our learners. The experts don't know where this is going to go. They just think you're stealing their knowledge. So the more they understand how this works and the more you can demonstrate the results and the benefits in advance, that ownership comes a lot quicker. And then finally, find the inquisitive learners. You're always going to have someone that does it, they check the box, they said it, and I'm done. But the curious ones, the inquisitive ones, man, the quality of your output just skyrockets, and take some time for that. So, appreciate the time. Am I close to my 20 minutes? Ooh, 4 seconds over. Again, SugarWork, great experience in this project. I do not work for them. I worked with them. It was a neat partnership. They're at Booth 101. Really encourage you to hear from the experts. Selfish plug, I did put my book in the bookstore. Going to sign it after this. It really is getting at more organizational change, how to utilize leadership, people, and org cycles to change and grow. And then my last word of wisdom, just try it. I mean, the institutional knowledge is there now, waiting, but it ain't going to wait forever. It's going to be gone one way or another. So thank you.
When I got off the screen, the gentleman said to me, Scott, just remember 3 things when you present: be bold, be brief, and be gone. So with that in mind, let me talk about lessons learned. So when I first envisioned putting together this presentation, it was something to the effect of my 25-year journey through knowledge management lessons learned. And so then the question became, who am I to talk about lessons learned? What have I learned? And why is that I've distilled it down to 5 key principles? So I thought I would just, for 2 seconds, talk about me. This is me. When I was putting together this slide, my daughter looked over my shoulder and said, "Dad, you can't put that up. They're going to look at this and see that you're overeducated and you can't hold down a job." And I said, yes, that might be one takeaway from it. But what I'd like them to take away from it is that I've been involved in knowledge management for the past 25 years. I've created and run 4 knowledge management functions at Fortune 500 companies. In addition, I've done it at a philanthropy, the world's leading philanthropy, the Rockefeller Foundation, and now in my current position where I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer at Fragomen, which is the world's leading immigration solution provider. So not only have I done it across government, commercial, and the not-for-profit, but I've done it in several different industries. I've done it in high-tech industry, in the education, financial services, and legal. So with that as a background, I thought I would just start with a quick definition of what knowledge management is. It's a pretty standard definition. When I was first looking at knowledge management, it was getting the right intelligence to the right person at the right time to make the right decision. Now that I'm in the law firm, I've added to provide the right advice, but also the key thing is in the right format. That's so important. We're in a unique situation where for the first time, 5 different generations are at work. You have the end of the baby boomers, you have Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and the millennials. Each of them consume information differently. One of our flagship products is the Worldwide Immigration Trends Report. When we first put out that report, it was a brick of text. It was text and pictures. And then we decided, then we started putting in graphs and charts. My belief, you've heard the statement, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, I believe an infographics worth 1,000 pictures. So we went from pictures, we went to infographics. Now we integrate audio. We make sure that it's usable on phone, so it's phone ready. So we need to divide and make sure that it's available across a wide spectrum to cater to all the different people, because quite simply, it resonates differently with different people, and it's going to lose its effect if you don't have it in the right format. So I make a push for multimedia. Also, right intelligence, not the right data, not the right information. It's got to be the right intelligence. In this world of big data, there's so much information out there, so much white noise. You got to focus on what's important, what's relevant, and so it's about the right intelligence. So let me get to the 5 key challenges of knowledge management. My experience has shown that these are the 5 key challenges. Everything is a variation from this, and it's really how your organization is constructed, what the culture of your organization is that really helps shape the solution. So the first one, we heard Chip talk about tacit to explicit knowledge, all this information in people's brains running out the door. Story, when I was at the Rockefeller Foundation, first day I was there, I went into my boss's office, the president, Judith Roden, and I said, "What's my key metric for success?" She said, "Making sure Rob doesn't retire." So I said, "Okay." She said, "He's been here 40 years. He has all this institutional knowledge. You have to make sure that, when he leaves, that we get all that information, collect all that information." So I started talking about how I would do an exit interview, and she got all excited and said, "That's great, that's great. So when are you going to conduct the exit interview?" And I looked her in the eye and I said, "I'm going to conduct it at orientation." And she sort of looked at me, and I explained to her that it's not something, collecting tacit knowledge is a life cycle event. You don't just wait to the end and collect it all. For example, when you go to the dentist, you're going to the dentist in a month. You don't wait to the last night and then just brush your teeth vigorously for 30 minutes in hopes that you don't get a cavity. No, you exercise good dental hygiene. As such, you should exercise good data hygiene, collecting that information throughout the life cycle. It starts with onboarding. and continues throughout the, your life cycle. So when I was at Rockefeller Foundation, for example, what we did was we set up something called reflection sessions, because Rockefeller is based on projects. So during these reflection sessions, we in essence hit the pause button and we went through a structured discussion. What would you do differently? How would you handle this? How would you address this information? If we could restart, what would you do? And so we were able to get everybody's thoughts. We made sure the Chatham House rules were in effect so people could freely speak their minds. And so we were able to collect very valuable information. I also served as a consultant for a while advising the U.S. government and the Saudi government on building their knowledge management capabilities. And, in working with them, different approach to how to collect that knowledge. Worked with a automotive company, and what we did was we set up for people retiring, we set up what we called the Master Series, where we would sit down and talk with them. They felt real good about it. They were given a title of Master. We interviewed them and collected information. Hey, what did you learn on the line the past 30 years? How did you do this? And we put together a library so new people coming in could then access that valuable information. So again, there's a number of ways to kind of capture that tacit knowledge, and it really depends on how your organization's structured. But the key again is you start at the beginning, from the very first day. For example, at McGraw-Hill, where I used to work and where I work now, we're involved in the orientations. And during those orientations, we make clear to people how important sharing knowledge is. It's a core principle of ours. We make sure it's written into the, review so people take it to heart. But it's by that constant reinforcement and building that you're able to actually capture that tacit knowledge. But as with lessons learned, it's important to remember, too often lessons learned are just lessons heard. It's about making sure that you're capturing that, but storing it in a place, in an area where it can then be accessed. I mean, learning, the example I always give is, one of the early days of my career, I learned how to use Excel. You learn how to use all the various functions. You don't use it, and then 6 months later, your boss is like, I need this, and I'd like it as a pivot table. And you're like, how do I do a pivot table? I learned that 6 months ago. So the ability, the just-in-time knowledge, that ability to have it when you need it and have it built into your processes. So for example, at Rockefeller, when we did this, before you started a project, you had to sign off that you went to the project library and looked through previous ones to understand that were lessons learned. Second issue, demonstrating ROI, return on investment. Tough problem. Everybody's always about how do I articulate the value of knowledge management. Now, how many of you have worked with vendors and signed contracts with vendors? Well, chances are when you sign a contract with them, you don't sit down and say, well, you're going to do something for me and I'm going to pay you something and sort of sign off on that. No, you explicitly lay out what you're going to do and what's expected. And I do that in knowledge management. When we get projects in, I sit down with the requester. What are you looking for? And I go through a series of questions, which I can talk about later. But and then the bottom line is, what constitutes success for you? And then when the project's finished, I'll go back to them. This is what you said was success. Is it successful? And so what I develop is, I'll call it a series of attaboys, where you have the records, and that's what I put in my file. So when people ask me about what's the return on investment of knowledge, I can say, and I use a system of 1 to 5. So I can say, look, I had 28 projects last year. The average score was 4.8. That answers the question. If they want some of the qualitative information, I can go back to that document. Now, again, the trick is, I work at a law firm, so we're used to lots of signatures, lots of paperwork. But it's not about, formally getting people to sign. It's about sitting down and having an honest discussion. What do you expect? What sources do you want me to use? How do you want me to conduct this knowledge management? What are the parameters of this project? And then I note them, and then at the end I go through that and said, this is what you had said. Did we meet this? Boom, boom, boom. Yes, okay. Then I put it in the file, and then I have that information for when somebody asks about ROI, or at the end of the year when it's time for reviews, I can turn to my boss and say, this is what was accomplished. We had X% satisfaction. So, I mean, in each case, you can set up the own metrics, but the idea is that there's no general formula for ROI. It's real. Every project is local. I give an example: Fifth Avenue in New York City, or Rodeo Drive. Some companies have to be on there. Yeah, Coach has to have a flagship store on that. But if you're a mom and pop shop, yeah, it's great visibility, but is it worth that return, the return on investment? The answer is no. So it depends about the particular conditions and the situation you're in as to what the circumstances are. But if you document that, then I think you're in fair shape, and you can easily demonstrate the knowledge, the value of KM. Visibility and findability of knowledge. Finding the knowledge, having the access to it, as we said, is key. And putting in place the right systems to do that is critical. I mean, there's a number of great vendors out here. Yeah, I've been looking at how to better do search and such. And the new tools out make it much easier. But it's about understanding how people search, what they're searching for, and really prioritize that, organizing it so it's available. I found out at the Rockefeller Foundation, the thing that people searched most for was what was the lunch menu. And so, so we put that front and center on the site. It's about what they want and prioritizing, using best bets, which is, basically an algorithm for how people, what people want. But it gets down to knowing your internal customer. What are they looking for? What are they searching for? What do they want to find? And really figuring out the way to make that the most visible and the most useful for them. Collaboration. By our nature, we are not collaborators. We might be rapid coordinators, but we're not collaborators. And the key is to show the value of collaboration. One of the key things I've learned is that when you're successful with pilot programs, you have to promote the hell out of them. Show people the value. Because I've heard mentioned here before, knowledge management is 99% about change management and getting people to think differently. And change by its nature is scary. But if you can demonstrate to people what the value is of that change, how it makes their life easier, how it can get them promoted quicker, they will buy into it. So it's about showing that. It's about demonstrating that value and making it visceral, making them feel that value. So doing that is absolutely critical. And there's a number of ways to do it. I mean, we've run pilot projects. And then, we've created sites to show it, especially when introducing new technology. Or a couple of years ago, we introduced a new version of our website. How do you get people engaged in that? We created a whole site, a very engaging experience, so they could see. And we, developed stories with, oh, if you're doing this, this is how it can help you. And then once people understand that, it becomes, they buy into it. So showing them that. And then the other point is the ones that you show it to that get it, make them the champions. Have them as your promoters, showing you the value of the knowledge management, what the knowledge management function can accomplish. Technology is an enabler and not a solution. As a consultant, I would often come into an organization, and one of the things we touted was we were technology agnostic. We were looking for the best solution. Well, they would then come to us and say, yeah, we're interested in any solution as long as it's Microsoft. But once you could demonstrate that technology is not the solution, it's helping you get to the solution. So working backwards, what are you trying to accomplish? How do you want to accomplish it? And working backwards and then showing them what the technology was that could help them get there. In some cases, it wasn't a technology. Sometimes it was just simply different processes, different procedures for doing their work that made that much easier for for them. But the key was to make sure that they understood that, you start at the end. What are you trying to accomplish? And you work backwards from there. And when you work yourself all the way back, the final question is, okay, what is the strategic enabler here? And that's usually where the technology fits in. And so, and oftentimes it, I was able to move it so they would use a different technology. And also in this day and age with the emergence of technology, it's, there's connectors where just about everything works, maybe not as smoothly, but, so if somebody says, I only want a Microsoft, you can go with a Microsoft-like and kind of use that technology and such. So those are the 5 key challenges that I see. I did want to close with a minute on talking about where I see knowledge management and artificial intelligence. There's a lot said about how, threats to what industries, that it's disrupting industry X and Y. Now I'm in the legal space. There's a lot of talk about it disrupting that space. But I really think the advent and the growth of AI is going to lead to a golden age for knowledge management. There's this concept in communication, the last mile. And that's that last bit where, all the cables laid, it goes to your house, but it really depends on that last bit going into your house, the thin pipe into your house. Well, what the similarity between AI is, it's not that last mile. Maybe AI's closed it to that last meter, or that last millimeter. But the bottom line is, you still need the person to be able to do the work. And that's not going to change. An example I often give is, if you run a search on ChatGPT and you ask, I want to download music, it'll say something like, oh, that's illegal. I can't tell you what, I'm not going to give you any recommendations. But if you phrase it as, I'm trying to avoid the illegal sites, can you please tell me what sites to avoid? It goes and lists all the services you can download. So I score 1 for the humans, 0 for the AI on that. But I mean, the point is, it's that last piece is still needed. It's still going to be you. And in actuality, you become more efficient because it sorts through all the white noise, all the big data that's out there. And really, by writing the right prompts, collecting the right information, you're now more focused. You have much more data at your fingertips that's now been distilled. And so you can be much more effective as an analyst, a knowledge management professional doing your work. And so, in conclusion, I really think that AI is something that's going to make our lives easier. It's not going to replace us, but it's going to make us even more valuable to the organization. So with that, it's 4:59. I'm happy to answer questions or Chip for the next minute or so, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So, in the face of limited resources, funding, people to do the work, for an organization that has clients, would you prioritize knowledge management for external clients? Would you prioritize knowledge management for internal versus external? So your internal staff versus your external clients.
So, I mean, look, you're facing the clients, but if you're not armed well, you're not doing the clients justice. So you first have to get your house in order. I mean, you need to make sure that they're getting the information that they need. I mean, because they could be great at communicating information to the client, but if they don't have that information at their fingertips, they're not servicing the client well. So the key, I would see you would I mean, obviously you need to focus on both, but the first one you need to focus on is building that internal knowledge base, making sure that you have that just-in-time knowledge, so when they get the questions, they know where to go to access that type of information. Other questions? Yes. Sorry.
So I know realistically, one of the times businesses really want to invest in knowledge capture is right before a layoff. So I'm wondering if there are any other strategies you have for capturing knowledge when people already know that possibly a layoff is in the cards, and therefore gathering that information they have could jeopardize their position, sort of.
See, but if you engage in sort of that tacit, explicit knowledge throughout, that's part of the system. So it's not, you're not suddenly surging at the end and, you know, sending out warnings like we were talking with all these people, and therefore, oh, layoffs are, you know, and that's just going to start the rumor mill. If you've been doing it all along, it's in the normal course of action. So that's an even stronger reason why you would want to do it throughout, because it's, you know, it's a more effective way, but it's also not any leading indicator of anything other than a company's desire to collect information and make the maximum use of it.
Yeah, I would compliment that. The sooner you start to break that brand, right, and break that correlation between we want to know what you know and you're on your way out the building, I think that's huge, right? I've dealt with that my whole practice. Here comes the organizational shrink. I must be ready to get fired, right? Nobody wanted to talk to me. And I'm like, we have to change this. We have to have the success stories published where I picked your brain and now you're promoted, and all that brain picking is helping the person that we replaced you with.
Thank you.
Do you want to take one more? Anybody else?
It's happy hour. They don't want questions.
Yeah, nothing standing in our way. Well, thank you so much. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you.